Record.
No countdown.
All right. Welcome, everybody. How is everyone's weeks? All good? All good? All
The
okay?
whole week?
Right.
Sleepy.
Okay. On a scale from 1 to 10. Average.
Okay.
8.
8.
How about-
Oh, that's pretty good.
Nice.
8 or 9 probably for me.
Wow.
Honestly, I've been too tired to assign a number. I'll let's say a little 6. It wasn't a bad week.
7?
Yeah, I'd say solid 7.
Nice.
It passes.
A solid C.
A solid C.
It's because it's average. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what gave me some space.
Yeah. All right. Well, like I said in the message, I was really excited to see everyone's code this week, and talk to people a little bit about the issues they were having and stuff like that. So I'm excited to go into demos already. So who would like to demo first?
Boom, we got it.
There it is.
Whoa! Is this payback?
What do you mean payback?
I thought we had. Remember last week you were like private chats, Kathy. Like we could have talked about it, which issue we wanted. I was just laying back, like literally, and like, okay, yes. Brandon,
Also, before you demo, could you just also go over the ACs that you worked on, just so everyone can get their memory jogged and up to speed?
Cool. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm gonna act like I was ready for that. Because I had the incognito tab open so that I could, so I could demo unbiasedly, and it wasn't a cooking show. What we had, okay, I'm ready. All right, I will share my screen. Oh, host disable attendee screen sharing.
The classic.
Yes. Now you can see all my screens. All right, there's that. Okay, so starting. First, our issue is that as a user, everybody can hear me?
Yeah, you're sounding great.
Okay, cool. Because nobody's giving me any response. I was like, okay, this is like I understand we're not at concerts, but still. All right. So as a user, I want to be alerted when I'm entering an item that is the same as something already on my list so I can avoid duplicate items. So then the acceptance criteria, that's what AC stands for, if I remember, is to show an error message if the user tries to submit an item. We're on time, so let me speak faster. A new item that is the exact same name as an existing item. Show an error message if the user tries to submit a new item that has the same name as an existing item, where capitalization has been normalized and punctuation has been removed. And then lastly, the user's original input should be what gets saved in the database. So you should see what you actually typed. All right, so typical AC fashion. We already have this up. So I will come over here and get a new token as well so that we can follow along on the journey of, let's call him Timmy. So Timmy would like to figure out what he needs to buy. It's quarantine time, so we're focusing on essential items, essential workers, essential items. So we also have some fun things that we can get, and we always type in. So we always get Sunny D. I'm trying to show punctuation and capitalization, doing that all in one. So you add the item, you look at the list, you see it's there. Oh, all right. So then, as I like to always add eggs. So let me try to do it again. Sunny D. No dash, forgot the dash this time. Add the item. It already exists. So cool, I already added it to my list. Well, now let's add something else that is regular. Oh, I didn't put chicken on this one. I put it on every other one. So then we put in chicken, and that gets added. So then if we try to put the same thing in again, then it says we already added chicken. So then we come and we can see, what is my token? My token is fun. Meckham Aztec Air. It's probably a little bit easier to actually read than usual. Refresh. Meckham Aztec Air. All right, so we got the seed of the chicken, the egg white. I had that earlier. Sunny D. Lori's, I had that in there, and the egg. So the Sunny D only got put in there once, but you can still see it. You know, all the duplications didn't happen. So now Kathy is going to show you how that happened, the behind the scenes with the code. And go.
All right. So let me see first about sharing my screen. And okay, no, I think that is what
That's my friend is what we call it, an alley-oop. Okay.
Yeah, a stumbling one.
Nah, okay.
I stumbled, anyways, but nonetheless, moving on. So, as Steph indicated already, that we, part of our AC was to modify the user experience when the user adds a new item, adds a new item. So while within the add new item function is where we opted to kind of make those modifications. And we started by first bringing in Firestore, an existence of Firestore, and then cleaning up the input, the user's input. So the item that the user provides, we first kind of sterilize it so that we can then later leverage an even or a level comparison. So once we, again, clean the user input up, we then make a connection to the actual Firestore Cloud Store, and take a snapshot of all of the items currently in that existing token shopping list. Once we have all the data, we then also sterilize that data again. So we are comparing the same item that the user puts in to the same item that is within the database, kind of even the playing field, for lack of a better term. And if the item is not included, it does not already exist in the token shopping list, then it is added to the user database. If it is already existing, a user receives an alert letting them know that that item already exists in the database. However, regardless of what the individual inputs within, regardless, let me back up, not regardless. Because the AC stipulates that we want to save whatever the user inputs, we don't actually change the user input before we save it to the database. So if you put a word in there, or words, as we've already seen with spaces, those spaces are going to be retained to the database. So, and that's pretty much all the changes that we made in terms of the code. So I think that's it for us. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, good job on that. I know that I paired with y'all on this the other night.
Oh yes, we should have given credit. Sorry.
Oh no! I wasn't looking for credit. What other than that, was there anything that kind of like stood out to you in this issue in terms of like complexity or like gotcha moments?
Something that maybe not to answer your question, Joey, but to something I did forget to say that maybe is a got you moment is the, you may or may not be able to see since I'm still showing my screen, the alert messages and trying to make them more accessible to the user. That was something that Jen pointed out. One thing that's definitely served as a gotcha to more directly answer your question from me is here on line 43. That's part of the reason we reached out to you is we were stumbling on actually returning something to the database because we kept receiving an error message. And I think Steph wrote that up maybe in the AC, in the PR, perhaps, as one of our like learning moments. But I'll let Steph answer in terms of any gotchas she has to share.
Yeah, so I think that the biggest gotcha, and it's kind of also if we were to be in a retro, but I'm gonna make this a retro. Is that was the just getting the connection to the database correctly. Like I'm kind of putting all of that in one, and that's what took most of our time versus completing the ACs. It was mostly just getting the connection to the database correctly, and it's something that I think that we could have reached out earlier in the week, and that would have saved us a lot of drama and time. And then we could have focused on actually the task at hand, but we weren't able to get started on those tasks for trying to get the connection with one, trying to get the connection correctly, and then after getting the connection, then getting the data out of the database. So that really are just focusing kind of on what Kathy said, which is that our real problem was getting the data out of the database. After we had that, because we already had a pseudocode idea of what we need to do, it was just that part was the longest part. If you look at like our coding time, the rest of it was a lot faster.
Yeah, I think that's really a good thing to point out because you mentioned that you had once you're able to get through that blocker, everything just kind of flowed. You had a good pseudocode idea of how to do it, and when you actually coded it, it went pretty fast. I think that's something really important to point out and give you like kudos for. You knew how to do the solution. It was just there's just one little blocker in the way, and those things happen. So I mean, nothing to worry about, and great job on that too.
I'm still stressed.
Yeah, but I mean, it looks awesome, and sometimes you just gotta breathe and laugh about it.
Y'all did awesome. So, it's residual stress?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like when you said, "Is there anything you had a problem?" Yeah, right now I'm still thinking about how long it took for us to get data from the database. Because that was the first part of our pseudocode. It was like, all right, we need to get data from the database. And it was like, wow, this is taking so long. I have no idea. And the other thing is that trying to find things that are in context, like looking around, trying to find the right things. And it's like, all right. Which is, I guess, is just because it's stressful doesn't mean it's not common, but still.
Yeah, I mean, these stresses happen, and I think it's important to just like be able to recognize that like you're still learning things, and like you learn things every day, and it's at the end of the day, it's just code.
Plus, also like this is also a great point to say you can Slack us at any time. And we're here for you. So if you're like, this is taking way too long, even after like a couple hours or even half an hour, you can go ahead and Slack us. That's what we're here for.
Well, that's what I said. That's what I said. Like, also, we should have reached out about that problem before. Like, it's like, all right, we need to reach out. But that was the other thing. Is like, well, when do we talk to them and this and that? But it was like, if we ask them on Tuesday, then sometime between Tuesday and Sunday, they have time. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think another good thing is that I think I talked to Volha about this too, but if you ever have any issues, just put them in the group chat. Like, just throw that out there. And so that, like, if I happen to be busy, Joey will see it. Or if Joey happens to be busy, I can see it. Or one of the other group members knows how to use Firebase really well, and someone can help someone out. So I think going forward, that's just like another reason where if you have any issues or any communication at all, we should try and keep it in the group chat because it'll help everyone help each other. Cool?
Help me, help you, help us, help me.
Exactly.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
I love that phrase.
Yeah.
Taking the advice of taking advantage of the microphone. Let's see.
All right, should we hop over to Brandon Volha's demo?
Okay, sounds like a plan. Let me share my screen with you. Okay, so this week, Brendan and I were working on issue number 5. As a user, I want to join an existing shopping list so I can share a shopping list with another person. So the acceptance criteria were for user to be able to enter a token and share and access an existing list. Also, if there is no such a list that exists, there should be an error message that should be displayed. And once the error message is displayed, the user should have an option to re-enter the token to try and get the access to the list again. So let me show you how that works. So first, let's grab a token that exists so we could test it with. Okay, so right now, our local storage is empty. We don't have any saved tokens. And let's try to access the list that does not exist. Ta-da! We get an error saying that the list does not exist and allows us to re-enter the token. Same as Kathy mentioned, we also would work on making the alert more accessible. So that's something on our plate. And we also did some, for user experience, we also sort of forcing the user to enter some sort of a token instead of entering an empty token. So for example, if there's nothing there, you are unable to click the button. So you have to enter something in order to be able to access the list. So now let's try to access the list that does exist. When we click join an existing list, it gets saved to our local storage. And now we could access this list by clicking on it. And it would display our items. And what we also added, we added a little scroll bar. So maybe like once there's enough items in a list, you will get a scroll bar. So it would stay consistent and wouldn't grow on the screen. For example, if you want to share multiple lists, you also have an option to do so. So for example, one list was for your family and another list was for your friends. So you can add another token. And as you see, it would get displayed under available lists. And depending on what you click, you will be taken to the list that you want to add it. So right now we want to add a different list. And now it has a cat litter. And we could update it. And we could easily switch between the lists to see which one we want to add it. So that was our issue for this week, and Brenton would go over nuts and bolts of code for it.
All right, sweet. Everybody, first of all, I'd just like to say I am super tired. I'm very sleepy. So if I like miss something or I'm not like super energetic, please, please understand. I apologize. So to begin with,
apology accepted.
Thank you. So to begin with, I don't know if you noticed, but we kind of changed how the footer function works for now. If you're on your homepage, we don't have a footer function, and we don't have a footer, I'd be like, let's just make a little beeping robot there. And all right, so, oh, wait, what am I doing? Let's do this. There we go. Sweet. So now that we go to add an item, we see that the footer now only populates to return us back to home. So we just did a little code shuffle with that, right? And let me just show you what I mean. So in footer components, we just removed the other navigations. And then inside of our roots, like, is it our index.js? It's our app.js. We basically moved our footer from being located inside of the app.js, and we decided that since this was a pretty simple navigation wise for the application, there aren't too many pages, we just decided to add manually the footer inside of both the add item and the lists components. All right, so that's just a little shout out, I guess. So let's go and show the lists components right now, just because the lists component showed a really interesting feature that was Vola's idea, and I thought it was great actually. The idea to allow us to have multiple lists at the same time. So how we did that was that, as you can see here, we use object.keys for our local storage. So what that actually does is that despite the name being objects.keys, it doesn't create an object, it creates an array from said object. And because we're looking for the keys, you could either choose keys values, or if I recall, like the full both keys and values. In this case, we just chose keys. So we now have an array that contains the keys of our local storage. So let's just say that I was to create another shopping list here and go home, and then we do application. Sweet. So now our keys value will be an array of both Kate Atul, Irvin, and, well, Pecos Upper Cashew. And now that it's an array, we now have the ability to use the map functionality. And then, well, yeah, and that's how we go. And then we made our link to each of these lists from our homepage, using some pretty sweet destruction to send the prop down of our local token. And this is like what determines what list we actually hit when we populate. If we didn't add this, it would just simply bring us the list without loading up any lists, right? So, and speaking of that, let me show you how that works. So yeah, see, this is the local token that we're looking for, that we're passing down. And if you notice here, we're sending it through our props. Just a little bit of, like, I guess, some also like a little destruction, kind of. And basically from here, which we added in, that's your lists. I see we set state local token key as a key value. So we're looking for the props allocation.state here, and then we're pulling out our token. From there, on mount, we're setting our local token to the value that we passed in from the link. And voila, it's magic. We now open up here and it populates and it shows us our lists out here. And click and we go to each dynamic one. I thought that was honestly freaking sweet. And I'm not gonna lie, when Vola showed me that, I was kind of shook. I didn't even like think of doing that implementation. Now for this functionality, this was very interesting. This is one that mainly gave us a lot of problems, just like Stephanie and Kathy with this. In our case, I would say that I think a large part of what caused a problem for me is I was operating off of a preconception of Firestore's structure, right? So let me just do this really quick just to demonstrate like why this gave us as much problems as it did, because I think it's important that we understand like not only what the problem was, but how, like why it gave us so much problems. If you notice, we store our collections, we store our tokens here as an actual collection, right? And we store every single thing inside of a collection. inside of its own individual collection. Sorry. So it's a collection that has a document with another collection of information. Normally, in the way I was used to it, and this was what definitely caused me problems here, is I'm used to doing it with the collection. It's like a parent's collection, and then has a document that has the other collections, but not in the root level. So I know that's kind of weird, but like, let me explain. Let me explain exactly what I mean there. How Firestore works, or Firebase, I should say. Well, yeah. How Firestore works is that Firestore, when you're looking to reference any data, a collection reference, anytime you look to query the database, it will always return you one of two objects, right? A query reference and a snapshot. And the thing is that the query reference is different and has different properties based on if you're trying to get a collection or a document. And that's the problem that I was going for, because I was trying to get reference documents, which has a really neat .exists property. But because we're using collections don't have the .exist property. Collections have a .empty property. So for a long time, I was trying to like basically bang my head on the wall trying to force .exist to work when it really didn't. And then, well, you know, that's when like Vola was like also helping me to like, we were like refocusing a lot and stuff like that. And Vola would definitely, that's when we reached out to you guys, and then we got like the help with using .empty to our advantage, right? It's pretty interesting. And just so like, I don't know if what I said there was like clear, so let me just demonstrate how like Firestore works. I'm sorry, this is taking a while, but like we did like a lot. We just had a lot of like, yeah, like problems and stuff like that with this one. So let's see. Okay, so I made this very, very cute little function here, and it's just going to help us out, right? Collection reference is, in this case, we are referencing a collection that doesn't exist. Document reference is for the same exact thing. We're referencing a document that doesn't exist, right? And no matter what you do, whether it exists or not, you will always receive your reference. So if we look here in our console and we go here, we see I don't exist is being returned to us. But how? It doesn't exist. It literally does not exist. It's not in the database. It doesn't exist, but it's returning to us. That's where you do a snapshot. And that's why when you do like the chain calls, like how Stephanie and Kathy did it, you do a .get and then you do a .then. And you do, well, whatever. You do your chaining, right? A snapshot, you get a snapshot whenever you do a .get or whatever function on this reference. So now, if I were to pull up the snapshot, here, we now get a snapshot of the same I don't exist object, right? However, now, oh, sorry, yeah. Now, because it's a collection, it has a new property, empty, which is true. Which, if you notice here, we do not have such thing inside of our reference. This is important because how it works is that the reference is just there for when you want to use a CRUD operation. So if you want to actually add an item to the database, you use your reference, you don't use the snapshot. So we see that. And well, now that we see that whole flow working out, if we were to just do the exact same thing, but for a document now, there we go. No, I knew it was going too smooth. It was going too good. No. Oh, okay. That's why. Collection reference, I think. Oh, okay. I'm silly. I uncommented the wrong code. Yeah. That's what happened. Okay. Don't worry, everybody. We're fine. We're back. We're good. Everything's working perfectly fine. There was not a problem.
And not worried.
Yeah. First try, you know? So same exact thing. We're looking for a document that doesn't exist. See, beep, I also don't exist. But now our snapshot, instead of empty, has an exists property. And we were looking for a solution that had the exist property, and well, yeah, that caused everything. Everything went hinky, let's say. So that, like, really long aside out of the way, I just wanted to demonstrate like that. The solution that we used was actually one that was suggested to us by Joey, which is that we want to have, if the collection itself is empty, we want to have an alert. Otherwise, we're going to add said token to our local storage, which would then populate this list, right? Hence the beautiful, sorry, this collection doesn't exist message, right? The problem with this approach that I think we still, I need to like fix on this now, is that if the user were to create a new shopping list, and instead of adding an item, were to head back home, right? Then technically the list exists, but now because we're looking for empty, right? This one, I think this was a new one. Well, basically, okay, let's just do another one just in case. Ally score swap, right? So now, pretty much if we were to do this, even though we know it's here in local storage, we know it exists, we still get this error message simply because the user made an empty list. So the implementation we need to do to fix that, once again, as suggested by Joey and Jen, was that we should make sure that if there's an empty list, the item does not get added to the database whatsoever. So, yeah.
Brandon, if I can add on that, the item does not gets added to a database at that point where you showed. So it gets saved to your local storage. However, if you pull up the Firebase, this item is not there yet. Items only get, new lists only get added to Firebase when there's at least one item.
Right. Thank you.
Right.
Again, guys, sorry, I'm sleepy, so
right.
Thank you, Bola.
The issue we want to sanitize the input. So as of right now, if we, can I share the screen with you for a second?
Of course, please take over. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, cool. So the issue we're having right now, for example, I add a token that does not exist in the database, but it does exist in my local storage. It gets displayed here as under available lists, right? But it does not exist in a database. So the issue it causes, so when we click on not there, it takes us to the list. If we just go back, nothing gets changed. So there are two ways we could go about it. So we could either sanitize what gets outputted into our available list, where we would be checking each token against the database and only displaying the items that do exist in the database. Or another option is, as of right now, if we click on not there and we add an item, so once we added the item, the list not there does get created under this token in a database. So there are two ways to go about it. Yeah, so there are two ways to go about it, and we need to figure out what is the best approach that we could take. But we could discuss it after the PRs.
Good job. That was like awesome. I mean, you guys kind of crushed the AC early on and then went on to adding these new features. It was, I mean, that was an awesome feature, but I understand the confusion with that. You know, I spent time looking at it, and it can be it looks so simple, but like there's just a few nuances that, you know, you need to consider. Yeah. I do appreciate y'all keeping the AC in mind with the story in terms of like getting the minimum acceptance criteria done before moving on to the new features. So thank you for that. Jen, did you have anything you wanted to add, or do you want to go into the
Yeah, no, I'm just sorry. I'm writing down stuff so that we can like discuss it later too, because there's just a couple things I had concerns about with what Boho was talking about earlier, how we have two options to solve that, and we can go into that later. But and then the other thing was I think when I tried to demo it locally on my computer, uh, the usability was, or how do I say this? I wasn't entirely clear. It wasn't that intuitive on how to get to the list. I was a little bit confused as to like once I clicked it and clicked enter, I thought I would get immediately pushed to the list that I just entered, but then I would have to click again in the bottom of the available lists, which after now seeing someone show me, it makes sense, but it's not entirely clear to the user. And so we can talk more about that on how to make it more clear, because I really do like the available lists there, because I know in our previous app, it was really annoying to try and switch lists. And so I really like this implementation on how to easily switch between lists. But yeah, and that's it basically. And then also, I guess, does anyone have any questions for them first before we like quickly talk about accessibility? About that issue that I think we were talking about in the PRs. Anybody else have anything else to say? No?
I
No?
did not do the get a chance to look at it, so I don't have any comments on that. I will say that we didn't mention all the things that didn't that didn't work and that we were gonna do, and that like that part of it that Brandon mentioned about well, these are the things that are how we tried it and the what, like all of those things, and then also I intentionally did not show the things that don't work on our
I wasn't going to, but I saw that y'all mentioned problems with getting the correct stuff from Firestore. So I just kind of wrote up that like the quick little function and just kind of like plotted out like that, the whole call with the .empty versus .exist, just to show like how to reference that properly. Yeah.
I'll be out here doing it like I'm fundraising. Like, and this is what we have.
Yeah, I was just trying to help out because I know Firebase could be a little too opinionated sometimes, in my opinion, but that's a Google product for you. So
I'm with you, Steph. I'm out here like this is going to be on YouTube forever, on the internet. And then, future job or employers might be Googling my name and this comes up. I want my demo to.
Hey, but you know what? I think what was a really great about Brandon's demo and Volha's demo is that they talked about what they struggled with, and like they said, this is what we could do better, and that's exactly what you all did too, Steph and Kathy. Like employers, like they're fine if you make mistakes, but you all had a plan on how to actually follow through and fix it. And so I think that like you don't have to be scared about talking on this recording. Like I think that's a really valuable information. If I was an employer and I just was creepoing on your repos and just kind of like doing a little like Google search on y'all, and I saw these videos, I would be impressed because everybody is doing a really good job at communicating what's going wrong and how you can move forward. And that is everything to an employer, in my opinion. So I don't know if you have any comments on that, Joey.
The current job I have, one of the on-site questions were describe to us something that went wrong for you on the job and like how you would go about doing it now. And it's kind of similar to this where you technically explain the problems that you had. And I think just being comfortable with having that mindset of mistakes happen, and it's something that like it's not frowned upon. Like that's not something to be like ashamed of. Like mistakes happen, and then just being able to talk about them technically, I think is a solid skill to have.
Yeah, and so Joey was my mentor from when I was doing Collab Lab, and I don't know if you remember this, Joey, but when I was a Collabie, I specifically said in the recording, I'm kind of mortified that I said this now, but I said that I'm afraid of committing mistakes to my code. And then all the mentors laughed. They were not laughing at me, but they were laughing at like the idea that nobody makes mistakes when they commit their code. And I don't know if you remember that, Joey.
I think I remember that. Yeah. I mean, I've brought down production on my last job a few times. I mean, it happens, you know. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just learn from it and, you know, be comfortable with it. And
Yeah, and so yeah, no, Kathy, I like all the things that you're saying about like being afraid to demo. Like I definitely felt that as well in my first go around, and I feel like probably Joey really felt that for me too. Like every time I demoed, I would like I'm always apologizing, but like you really don't have to do that because you're really doing a really awesome job, all of you. So I just want to tell you all that little pep talk because
Yep.
you all apologize a lot, but you don't have to do that because you all are doing a really awesome job.
Demoing is scary, man. It's so scary.
Oh,
But
I
yeah.
feel, I'm like, I don't know if I apologize. Do I apologize?
Oh, I mean, like everyone's like, I wasn't that prepared, blah blah blah. Yeah, so you all don't have to apologize. You're all doing awesome.
yep.
But yeah, anyone want to say anything about that before we take a quick trip? Just a quick discussion about accessibility before we move on to the learning module.
So I got a statement about so to the environment of these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being comfortable. One thing that is weird is it seems to be I don't know because I didn't read all the documentation, I see all the videos that people put the stuff in the chat while you're doing the demo, and it's like, great job, and it's like, okay, this person is whispering, you know, it's like, but you could just unmute your mic and say it, but then I'm unmute my mic and I'm like, so that might be the only thing where I'm like, it's a one person crowd in here, you know, is anybody, you know, how y'all doing tonight? You know, it's just like, it's, you know, can we talk during the demos, because that's not going to change what you see on the screen.
Oh, yeah. It's not really about the recording, and it's more about not some people can get derailed when you like talk in the middle of their demo, like even if you're showing support. And so that's why like I usually just err on the side of chatting instead of talking. But if as a team we say that doesn't bother us, then we can go ahead and just be like, hey, good job, because of course that always feels better than chatting. So I don't know, what does everybody feel about that?
I personally think that I would get distracted.
Okay.
Yeah, big
I'm
mood.
so glad you said it, Volhan, because I was thinking, no, that I'll have to get back to the root every time. I swear. Steph, I'm sorry.
We're like the tangent squad right here. That's just how it be.
Well,
Yo,
y'all can talk their mind.
Yeah, I was gonna say, now that we know that you like that feedback, we're all just gonna start talking over you during your demo.
Yeah, I'm like, you don't have to say good things. You can just say anything. Like, hold on, can go back to something else. Like, because the thing is, I'm trying to make this. You already saw a demo, like on the PR, whatever. So now that I'm doing it here, what is the difference with having y'all here than to be able to say something while we're together doing the demo? Then there should be some. Otherwise, we all would just look at the GitHub.
Yeah, that
and
makes
just
sense.
come with comments.
Yeah, so part of the reason why I didn't have, for example, for this time around, for your demo, for example, I didn't have a lot of comments this time around because yes, you explained a lot in the PR and things like that. But also, like, the biggest thing I wanted to discuss is the accessibility piece that I commented on both the PRs. And so part of the reason why I didn't have a lot of comments is because I want to save that until the end after both teams presented their stuff, because we're going to talk about the same thing. Otherwise, yeah, I would have been like, if I had any like really, really pressing questions, I would ask in the middle of your demo. But that just like shows that you all demoed really well. So I understood what your code does and what your thought process was behind it. So I had no questions. Does that make sense?
On to accessibility.
Okay, so just as like a quick aside, I put links in the PR about the accessibility of alert functions. I am not by any means an accessibility expert, and after joining Collab Lab is really when I got introduced to a lot of the concepts. And I believe, Joey, do you know what week Andrew's going to be presenting, or maybe Lahita is going to be presenting accessibility? I think, is it the next one or is it the last one?
Let me get back to you on that. Need to check out the sheet.
Yeah, I forgot to. But anyways, we'll be talking more in depth because I'm by no means any expert. But I just wanted to bring attention to this. But one of the first things I learned about accessibility is that alert functions are really not that great accessibility-wise, because when someone's using a screen reader or something, they lose focus on what the form or something that they were on when the alert pops up, because it has like an on blur effect to the rest of the page. And so if this is since we're like going a little bit over time too, since this is something that both the teams used in their PRs this week. I just wanted to bring that to the attention and just have everyone like read the link, and then we can also discuss in Slack basically like how to more effectively maybe use ARIA labels, or just using an error alert that maybe comes up as a div instead, so that or just some other way to show the alert so that it doesn't obfuscate what was in focus for the screen reader. And does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I like personally hate
Sounds
alerts,
great.
so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Are
that's
you
all
good,
I wanted
Jen?
to say. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, are you good if we maybe branch off of our other existing, what do you call it? Do you want to see these issues resolved in order to be included in the merge, or should we branch off of branches
No.
with accessibility to make these
Yeah,
areas?
just because I think this was not in the AC, but it's just something I wanted to bring to your all's attention. And so I just wanted to put that out there. So go ahead and merge your code once all the ACs are finished. But maybe this is something that we can just like append to the ACs for next week, so you all can think about how to like get rid of these two alerts that we have right now.
Sounds
Does that make
perfect.
sense? Awesome.
Thank you. For me anyway.
Yeah, it was a lot. Also, it was clear to hear you explain it.
Yeah.
The like one line thing and a link in the PR.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why I wanted to bring it up, because sometimes reading things is not entirely clear. So with that being said, I think now Joey will go ahead and give us a little learning module on pair programming.
Alrighty. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to talk about pair programming and kind of how it works in Collab Lab. And then maybe I can, give some examples of how I've used pair programming on the job and how it's helped me. So right off the bat, pair programming, you all have been doing it these past few weeks. Two developers sit down in front of a computer. Granted, their computers are very far away, given we're all remote, and we take turns writing code. There's a ton of different ways to do pair programming. We're going to talk about the driver and navigator model for this example. So in this case, one person decides to be the driver, and they are responsible for controlling the keyboard, and they are the ones that are actually writing the code in order to complete the task. They will try to kind of verbalize their thinking process, and they kind of think low level about the code. They really try to go into define details about their implementation. On the other hand, we have the navigator, which is the person kind of paying close attention to the code they're writing, and they kind of offer kind of higher level suggestions. They kind of have like a bird's eye view, where the driver is actually in the code, and so they have like a lower level view of that. They can kind of like bounce ideas off each other. So before we go on to the next slide, there are multiple ways to do pair programming, but like I said, we're just sticking with the driver navigator model for right now. Just want to make that clear. So I think now more than ever, remote pair programming is going to be a thing going forward. A lot of the times when you would, start at a new job, you would be able to like pair with someone for like a week or two to kind of get up to speed. Now that we're all kind of remote now, remote pair programming is going to be a very important skill to get used to and get comfortable with. So, I mean, I feel like y'all have been doing this well. Two of the developers are going to hop on a call. In this case, the driver, if we go back to that model, the driver is going to screen share and they're going to be the one actually writing code, while the navigator is there to provide feedback and ask questions about some of the code they're writing. And then what I've done in the past is we kind of set a timer, maybe like 15, 20 minutes, where no matter where we're at 15 minutes, we push code to a branch and then we switch roles. So in this case, the navigator is going to pull down the code and they swap roles and the whole process starts again. I found it super helpful to do both in the past, especially when I'm learning like a new service and I'm with someone who has a lot of experience with that service. For me, it's different actually seeing someone write code than me physically writing code. I feel like I learn more, by physically doing. So I think that is super valuable to use the switching off model to make sure that if you're more of a do it learner rather than a see it learner, you can have, both of those. So with pair programming, it is an exercise. With any exercise, you need time to kind of get used to it and build muscle to it. I think it's important to go into a pair programming session with the beginner's mind, embrace doubt and possibility. So try not to go into like a pair programming session where you go in kind of knowing it all, because you might not know it all, or maybe you do know it all and your partner might not know it all. It's also not about teaching nor mentorship. It's kind of like a joint effort. Think of it as like 50-50. It is an opportunity to learn as well. You could be an example, like you could be a driver in this situation, and your navigator could offer you a suggestion for a way you're writing like a built-in method. There might be an easier way to do it with less syntax or whatnot. There's just a lot you could learn from there. For the drivers, you want to seek agreement before proceeding. So if you're going to write like a new function, for instance, it's kind of good to talk about your process going forward before you dive into it, because if you're going, this way and your navigator is mentally this way, it's going to be hard to get back to the center. And for navigators, ask, don't tell. You're not the one writing code. So if they're doing something that you're not sure about, instead of saying don't do that, maybe try asking them. Maybe ask them their thought process, because even though you haven't seen it, it might be a decent way of doing it. And maybe it's just something that you haven't seen before. So it kind of goes back to the whole, it is a learning opportunity for both of you. So with regards to Collab Lab, here are some things to consider when pairing. I think it's super important to always remember that both pairs are learning in this case. Some of this stuff might be new to people, which is 100% fine. I think it's important to go into it with the mindset of you're not here to write amazing code, you're here to learn. Always see your pairing partner. We say a lot without words, kind of always being there for your partner during this session. They might be going through a lot of stress right now, and it's always good to see your partner where they're at in their situation and whatnot. With pair programming, dialogue is super important. It's also like a good practice for communicating technically with another developer. Sometimes when you're in meetings with a bunch of people, it can be intimidating to speak up on a technical topic. pair programming is a great way for you to get practice, voicing technical ideas and thoughts with someone in a safe environment. I also think it's important to remember that at some point you will get struck, you will get stuck or frustrated, which is totally happens. It's fine. It's always important to remember that you have a Slack channel with mentors and other cohort members that you can bounce questions off of. So just remember that resource is always there. And it can be tiring switching roles and thinking out loud. If you need to take a break, it might be a good idea to maybe put your pair programming session on hold for 15, 20 minutes, take a break and reset and step away from the problem. Sometimes if you're talking out loud too much, you can kind of start to like kind of deviate from the solution you're trying to go down. So I think stepping away and having 15, 20 minutes to just relax and not think about the problem and to come back with a fresh mind is always a good way to go about it. We have some more links in here. I'm going to put these in the Slack channel once we're done. I think that the remote pair programming links are going to be good ones to check out because, like I said, we're all remote, and remote pair programming is going to be a much bigger thing in the future. Yeah, so do you have any questions, or do you want to talk about how pair programming has been so far with Collab Lab? Is this your first time doing pair programming? If not, is it different from the way you've done pair programming? So I'd like to kind of open up the floor and kind of hear what folks have to say about that.
Yeah. This is definitely my first experience actually doing pair programming, right? And it's interesting. It's like actually pretty cool. The benefits, for one, I feel like the amount of code I put out is less over time, but that's not a bad thing. And like, it just means that I feel a lot more intentional about what we're doing a lot of the times, instead of me just being like, okay, I'm going to try this and see if it works. Okay, I'm going to try this instead and see if it works. It's nice. It keeps me like from being too hyper-focused on one issue or one approach to an issue. And I really like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to point out. I think people know that when you pair program, your output is going to be less, but your output, the quality should be higher because you have multiple eyes on it. You're bouncing ideas off each other. And so, yeah, I'm glad to hear you have those same ideas.
I have two things.
Yeah.
So one, yeah, I pair programmed before. A lot mob programmed, I call it, but it's more, whatever. And I've never done the switch off thing that you said, like every two, like it just kind of became like okay, I'll just type it. So I guess it has switched sometimes. And so doing it here is still kind of the same. The other thing is that I found one thing that is different here though, and it could just be because I came later, is that like I have to get like kind of established with the person that I'm pair programming with. So like for example, it's like, okay, so this week I met Kathy for the first time and had to start working on the code. But first I had to meet her first, so it's just like, okay, like who is this person? Like so those kind of things, I feel like that is good. At the same time, it's like it also adds to the time, and that's what's different from this versus the other time where I pair program with people that already knew, at least tangentially or some way, we had some type of contact. So that's
for sure
strange.
Yeah, I think too, that's a good point to call out, is that you like this, like you're gonna have like a few first time meeting people and then directly pair programming with them just because you're coming in at week 2. I think that is a good call out because, like you said, most of the time when you pair program with someone, you've known them for a little bit at least. And I think this is just like an outlier maybe in this case where you're hopping in with someone brand new for the first time and then pair programming right away.
Yeah, and I think even though you weren't here week 1, it was only 1 week, and at least how when I was in Collab Lab, for me, basically the first 3 weeks were us sitting down for the first time program, and I'd be like, so tell me about yourself, like with that opener, like super awkwardly. But eventually, once you get week 4 and on, since you already know everyone, you just boom, straight to the pair programming. And so I definitely know and feel you, Steph, because I went through 2 Collab Lab cohorts, and like after being so comfortable with my first cohort and then having to start a new cohort over again and having to do that process over again, it can be tiring and like can take away from the code a little bit. But I think once you get to know someone, you can code better with them. So
Right. I also want to share my experience with pair programming. I learned a lot. So I only had experience working with Casey and Brendan. I will experience working with Stephanie next week. But I really love how people use different tools. People use different practices, and seeing them doing so and learning about them, it's pretty cool because you get to build your own skill set. And for me, that was the most inspiring thing.
Yeah, I think that's super cool too. Like when I'm pairing with someone and they bring up a new tool that I haven't seen and I get super excited about it. Like I love, exploring new tools that make me more efficient in my development process.
dude, yeah, and shout out. I saw Volha, you shared a VS Code live share link. I love that tool. If you don't use it, you should.
I learned it from Casey.
Yeah, Kathy shared one too with me.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite tools ever. Even if I'm sitting next to someone coding with them next to me, it's sometimes nice to see, because like sometimes it feels weird, you're like peering over their shoulder. But if you're sitting next to them looking at the same code, sometimes it's nice too.
What I also noticed too with live share is when you do share that link, so instead of just looking at it through the screen share, you're able to see the code kind of your own theme, how your eyes sometimes prefer to see things, if that makes sense, than having to just see like maybe somebody, like I don't know if you've seen that like red hot dog theme, like that would burn my eyes. But with a live share link, I don't have to just see that. I can look at my nice whatever fairy floss or whoever I'm using currently.
Truth.
Yep.
But you know what I mean? So that's a nice tool as well, that I think is cool. Even the terminal, because sometimes when I look at other people's terminals, I'm like, what branch are you on? Like, what file are you in? Everything's black and white. I can't even read that. But you see, it changes it for what I'm used to. And I'm like, oh, okay, I know what branch you're on. I'm with you.
Yeah,
So that was a long day.
No. I mean, I think that's a good call out too, because I've had to pair with someone who uses Vim, and then I struggled the entire time.
No, oh no, dude,
Yeah.
I hate Vim so much.
And so that inspired me to install the Vim VS Code plugin. So now I use Vim hotkeys when I use VS Code. Just so the next time I go back to him, I can flex on it with my Vim knowledge. It's not going very well.
You gotta be a 10x developer, man. You gotta use Vim.
Ain't that the truth?
God.
All right, Jen, do you want to go over the issues for next week?
Yes. Okay, let me share my screen. Let's see, screen share.
While you're doing that, Jen, and I don't know if it's better to wait offline, I had a question as well. And this is, I appreciate you and Joey so very much. I just want to know, because I think maybe you've been taking liberties and pinging people I shouldn't be. Should I also be adding La Quinta or Laquita? That's probably how it's pronounced. And Jill on my and/or our issues, reviews, etc.
Yeah. So I think so. You can go ahead and tag Laquita, but Jill is actually she's a alternate mentor. So basically like a substitute mentor in case like something comes up for us and things like that. Laquita just had some like personal stuff that she had to take care of, but she might be back in future sync ups. And so I would continue to go ahead and tag her. But so Jill, I think you can tag her as well, but she might not necessarily reply because she is a sub for all of the 3 cohorts. So she might not have the time to take a look. So I would say that you can go ahead and tag a lot of people if you want. But because there's no harm in doing that. And we joined Collab Lab to be a resource for people. And so no one's going to get mad at you for over tagging.
Right.
Okay, really good to know.
There's
Thank
no such
you.
thing as over tagging. I'm gonna say that.
I was
but just
afraid there was.
Don't like
'Cause,
add
you know, some
here
people are like,
to
stop
all of
sending me
Collab Lab, but
emails.
yeah.
When you
So
ping someone on those things, every time there's a change, they get an email. And
yeah,
I just don't want people really
I mean,
cursing
people
me.
can actually they can turn it off,
No,
so you don't have to worry about that.
That's not what I'm supposed to. Oh.
Yeah. So don't worry about it. But thanks for being conscious and really in tune with how other people might think about that. But don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about that. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so let's go into the issues for the week. One thing I also wanted to bring, if I can see, bring to your attention, I have too many things open, is that we still do have this, we still have this Kanban board here. That I think we haven't really been using so far, but it would be really helpful, at least for the mentors too, for us to like start more, not religiously, but use this board more. And basically it just helps us see what issues are in progress, maybe some issues that are still straggling from the week before, and just kind of have a nice snapshot of how the week is going. And so we see, let's see, these were the issues from last week, correct? 5 and 6. And so these, I think, let me check in with everyone. So have the peer review, I think they're in peer review. I think a couple mentor comments have, or two, actually both mentors have commented. But I think I just wanted to also mention that like usually the flow is the other team will review first and then the mentors will review. But I think because the PRs have come in on Saturday, Joey and I just wanted to make sure that our like reviews were in just to help everybody out before the weekly sync. And so I think that if we also use this board, then we can have a better idea to see where everyone's at. And also everyone can glance in. They'll get the Slack message and also see this to be able to see like, oh, I need to review something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think right now these have already
good.
been mentor reviewed. And have all the peer reviews been in, or I think some of them have been in, right? So I think I'm going to just go ahead and leave them in peer review for right now, because I think there are still a couple things that need to be resolved before they are merged. So go once you all on all the issues are resolved and the issues have been, or the PRs have been merged, we can go ahead and like push them to done. Sound good?
Hold on. So we're supposed to fix those changes before it's merged, like the accessibility stuff?
Oh no, the accessibility stuff was not part of the AC. I think I don't think I commented anything on your PR stuff, but I think there was like a thing with Volha's PR and Brandon's PR, but I think that might be resolved now too. So whenever those get merged, go ahead and just pull this to done, and then we'll all be golden.
Okay. So
I think just because the reviews were all out of like order this week, and so you can just like skip the other columns and push them on to done.
All right. We can merge ours.
Yeah.
I remember you saying in your comment, Jen, that there were no blockers, just some like console log removal suggestions.
Yeah.
Which basically. I think I committed up, or Stephanie and I committed up before this meeting, so those should be gone. And Steph, once we get peer reviews, Steph can do
our peer reviews are.
Were they in? I thought we were. So and maybe that's a good question. If we just receive one peer review, are we good to go, or should we wait for both team members to review?
Usually we wait for both team members to review. And so like when you review, make sure like to go into this files changes tab and then like see the different things that are there. And then you can click review changes and make sure to click approve, or if you don't approve, like click request changes. That way, when we're on the conversation page, people can easily see who's approved and who's still waiting, so that who we're waiting for, so that we can easily like tag them and ping them in Slack just as a reminder.
Brandon, cough, cough.
Listen.
I didn't mean it to be a call out. I was just saying
I haven't done y'all's either, so I'm calling myself.
And I queued it up, so but I was just literally asking because I think I don't know what the process is, and I'm not trying to take away an opopportunity from anyone by
merging like I did.
Yeah. So this is still like, this is like what week is this? Week 2, week 3, week
3,
week 3. So
is that
so it's okay. Like we're still learning and we're still getting used to the process. So don't worry about it. Ask these clarifying questions. You all are doing great. Okay. Any other questions before we jump into the issues here for next week? Oops. Oh, what did I click on? Oh no.
It's like a Da Vinci Code.
It's better now.
Okay. Okay, good.
For who?
Okay.
Okay.
So now we have 2 issues for next week. We have issue 7 and 8. So this one, the AC is pretty short, but it's basically, as a user, I want to see a welcoming prompt to add my first item if my list is empty, to help me get oriented to how the app works. So basically, you should check. So right now, if the list is empty, there should just be kind of like a guide for the user on how to use the list and how to add an item and things like that. So maybe just like a quick instructions or things like that. And then the other issue this week is, as a user, I want to mark an item on my shopping list as purchased so the app can learn how I buy different items. So a user is able to tap a checkbox or similar UI element to mark an item in the list as purchased, and the item should be shown as checked for 24 hours after the purchase is made. So I think I showed this in the demo, but basically, because in future issues you will be calculating when you should be buying the item next, it's important that if someone clicks on it, they're not able to click on it again for at least 24 hours, so you don't get duplicate clicks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of like a forcible debunction.
So does anyone want to call dibsies on issues? Because I think so next week, is it Steph and Volha and Brandon and Kathy?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
So
hold on, before we go there, I think I'm not quite sure I'm following it. So what if I do want to add duplicate items, since we don't have the number per se? Like what if I want to buy creamer, but I want to buy 2 bottles of creamers? So why won't they be able to add 2 creamers?
I think because so it doesn't really take into account quantity on this list. And so the idea is that in the end, when you have the app done, the list of the items are going to be sorted by priority of when you need to buy the item next. So as you buy the item more and more, you can think of this as kind of more of a reoccurring shopping list instead of like a one-off shopping list. And so as you buy the item more and more, you'll click when you buy it. As you use the app more, it'll see, oh, this person buys this item like every 7 days, or this person buys this item every 2 weeks. So it will order the list of items based on when you need to buy it next. Does that make sense? So it doesn't really take into account quantity. And you could definitely add that if you want as like an extra AC at the end of the thing, but that's basically the functionality of how Andrew originally brainstormed this list to do.
I got you. Okay, cool. Thank you.
kind of like an inventory list, of what you usually keep in your house.
Yeah, like your pantry
That's what I
list
thought about.
basically, and then
Yes.
this thing should remind you of like when you're running low and maybe you should consider picking it up.
Yes, that's how I thought of it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like the bright idea I had that I saw on Twitter of using like a Sharpie marker on, well, not a Sharpie, and like a dry erase marker on your freezer, which seemed like a great idea till it wouldn't come off. Just so you know. This app's a much better replacement for that. I can't wait till it's done.
Oh man, you didn't try as organic solvent? I mean, yeah.
I did
Anyways.
eventually get it off, but it took a lot of effort and fear that my mother, she's very overboard about her white freezers, but I digress.
Well, okay. So, does anyone want to call dibsies on any of the issues?
Kathy mentioned from before that she would have liked to do number 7, and actually, I think this would be great for me too. Yeah.
I'm doing
Yeah,
it.
I'm interested to see how y'all do your styling.
Yeah. This is something like
Okay.
Brennan likes to style everything.
Yeah.
Listen, I just find it
noticed
annoying when I
looks
click
nice.
into like a little 2-pixel high form, right?
I'm looking forward to it. Let's see, make it pretty.
Hell yeah.
We'll see. It's easier to make things pretty when you only have one AC though.
Yep, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to worry about too much about functionality now, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Like, theoretically,
Okay.
there should be plenty of time in the week for it.
Yeah. But does anyone have any other questions about the issues or anything like that? Or like basically the I don't want to call them straggler issues, but the issues that are left over from this week. Does anyone have any other questions that they wanted to ask before we hop off the call?
Yeah, I feel like can we, if possible, because it took a minute for me to understand. I mean, we talked about it, like, but still, like me and Kathy talked about the comments that we got, but even still, it took some time for me to say, okay, I think this is what they mean by this.
Mhm.
So if the people that make the comments like to be like, hey, this is what I mean by
Okay,
Are
yeah.
you referring to me?
you and Jen.
Sure. Yeah. If y'all have time, I'm down to stay for a few more minutes if you want to ask clarifying questions.
I think I'm good now. No, I'm good now.
Oh, you're good now. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Do you have any more lingering questions though? Go ahead and shoot them out.
Steph, did you want to raise the issue or discussion of how we're maintaining data in the database, or no?
No, I don't feel like that because you can talk about it.
Right. Okay.
I didn't say a word. I'm back on mute.
No, I'm saying you could talk about it. I didn't want to talk about it because I don't, because I feel strong about it, and then at the same time I don't know this whole like Firebase API.
I think I could talk about it then. So the question I was asking in my comment is whether we should keep the spacing and consider the spacing. And the example I had was a hot dog, right? You can type a hot dog as a hot dog in one word, or you could type hot and then space dog. And I was wondering if that should be treated as the same item or as two different items. So I think Steph had the same example with egg whites. So you could type egg whites or you could type egg space whites, you know? So I was just wondering if that's something we should consider as a part of a cleanup as well.
Yeah, that was so since we're talking about this one, it took me a second. I understood what you meant though. And that was just the regex that we have in there should have taken care of that along with the punctuation, but there's just a little there's a quote unquote bug in the regex. But so I just gotta look into the regex that we have and see what got missed. But it should have accounted for the space. So I gotta see why it didn't. So
wait, Steph, it shouldn't have accounted for the space in the actual database, right? Because we're saving the data in the database.
no, it doesn't. Like it reads it as like so the it reads it's egg whites, egg white, and then egg space whites, or hot dog and then hot space dog should be the same thing, right? So we did the AC, right? We did do the punctuation, the capitalization, right? But as far as like also things that make sense, you should say, okay, you already put egg whites in here, whether you put a space in there or not. And so the thing is that the regex with the backslash s should have did it. However, something got thrown off with it. So I gotta see, well, what else is in there that why it's not taking care of the space, because it should be read as the same thing, because whether you put a space there or whether you put um don't put a space there, it shouldn't get entered into the database twice, because it is the same thing, egg space whites and egg whites. So that's why I was testing. So she tested hot space dog, and I test egg space whites. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. I'm still chit chatting. She said, all right.
No, that was my way of saying you're right, I'm wrong. Like, my bad. That's not like with an emoji. They need more reactions.
Yeah, they really do.
Well, no, it was cool. It was like, all right, and cut. But yeah, so no, Vaughn, I didn't have a question about the PR. I was saying that that's why I said you and Jen. So it was more Jen, but she explained hers, right? Because it was something that was applicable for both and general. I'm just saying, but looking at it, it was like, oh, okay, I did not get that from that one, but I said that earlier. From that one line of that one statement and a link, I didn't get all of the screen reader and like so like I didn't get all of that. So that's why I was saying that in order to know how to go forward, then if we could say, hey, this is what I meant by that.
That's great clarification, for sure.
That way we know how to go forward and
Yep.
get the changes.
Sounds good. Any other clarifying questions anyone has?
I like the Jigglypuff. I didn't say at the
Thanks.
beginning.
Thanks.
Well, all right, y'all. Hope you have a good week going forward. And if you need help at all with anything, feel free to post in the channel, ping us. We're here to help you. But if nothing else, have a fantastic week.
So me and Voha have the other, was it issue 8?
Yes.
Just by default, but us not being mentioned. It's okay though.
What?
All right, it's okay. I'm not offended.
We got it.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not offended. Just like, oh yeah, Kathy and Brandon, you have this one. All right, okay. You could go back and watch the recording.
Okay. Sorry, I forgot about you guys. But yeah, okay. So thanks for showing up. Thanks for putting in so much work. I really appreciate, and I love seeing all your faces. If you all want to hop on a call in the middle of the week for any clarification for anything else too, feel free. So
Thank you very much.
I'll catch you all later.
Thank you.